So in just 2 weeks, we have a potential disaster on our hands. Because on June 1st, 2023, the entire world could change. We could see the US dollar collapse, borrowing costs are going to skyrocket, the United States could instantly fall into a recession, and the credibility of the US will be compromised for years to come. That is what we know. That is a possibility. Now, all this is due to the debt ceiling crisis that we are currently in. And the fact of the matter is that the US Treasury is running out of funds to pay our bills. Currently, they're using something called extraordinary measures, where they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. The problem is that will only go so far. Now, a lot of people have asked me, is this a new problem? Can we get through this? The answer is this. Is this a new problem? The answer is no. This is not a new problem. The U.S. debt crisis has been a problem multiple times. It has been a crisis before, but the crisis has been averted. Now, the next question I get all the time is, why don't we just remove the debt ceiling? Because at that point, we don't have to go and negotiate it. Wouldn't this solve the crisis from this ever happening again? And the answer is actually pretty simple. It's yes. We could remove the debt ceiling. This would prevent a debt ceiling debate and negotiation from ever having to happen again. The problem with removing the debt ceiling is this then gives lawmakers and the current president or whoever, it almost gives them the open door and the invitation to come and pass excessive bills, saddle the U.S. and the U.S. taxpayers with a massive mountain of debt. And because of that, there would really be nothing holding people back, because the debt ceiling is always there to keep a little bit of pressure, keep a lid on it, a lid on spending. Now, I want you to do one thing for me. First off, can you spend 2 seconds, go ahead and hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. The next thing is this. Answer this question down in the comment section below. Are you worried about the U.S. debt ceiling? And if you answer no, why is this? Because we should be worried. We are already seeing some changes. Even though we haven't actually really breached the debt ceiling, we still have money. We have not defaulted. And when I say defaulted, according to the U.S. Treasury, a U.S. default would occur if we miss one single payment. It doesn't matter if it's a bill for $1 million or a bill for $150. We miss one single payment, whether it's for a office building in Ohio or a Social Security recipient in Vermont, it doesn't matter. You miss one single payment, we would be in default. Now, I want to show you where we are today. What's currently going on, what Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's saying, what some House progressives are saying is going to really hold things up. And again, this could be problematic, especially as President Biden is going to meet with Speaker Kevin McCarthy today. But before I get into what's happening today, I first need you to understand one thing. And that is that when you run the numbers on the U.S. debt, right, the debt ceiling, you start to do the math. Well, the U.S. government is likely going to default on our debts eventually. Now, it may not be in 2023. It might not even be in this decade. But eventually, the U.S., if we continue running like we have and we continue down this exact same path, we will default. Again, this is not the thing that we want to see. This is not what we want to experience, but this is the current path and trajectory that we're on. Now, I want to look at some of the main points that are coming out of the media today. Okay, so look at this. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she warns, time is running out ahead of the Biden-McCarthy meet. This is actually happening today. Says GOP Democrats show few signs of agreement on U.S. debt limit. Secretary offers reassuring words after several bank failures. That's just what she's saying. Now, here's something else you need to keep in mind. Right now, we have until pretty much June 1st. It could be extended. It could go to June 10th or 15th or July 1st, July 4th. We don't know. But according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, it will be as soon as June 1st. Now, she also wrote a letter. It says, Yellen warns U.S. is paying the price as negotiators battle on debt limit. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen issues fresh letter to lawmakers on debt limit timeline. Biden announces fresh meeting with Congress leaders on Tuesday. Now, I'm going to show you that letter in just a second. We will read through that. But I want to also show you another problem. And that is this right here. House progressives vow fight if Biden yields to GOP on food aid, because Republicans demand expanded work rules in the debt limit talks. And Pramila Jayapal, she predicts concessions will provoke a huge backlash. Now, we'll go and read this statement really quick, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. But right here it says, if they give on these core democratic values, and I hope they don't, there will be huge backlash. So Pramila Jayapal, she's a progressive caucus chairwoman. Okay, now let's talk about that for a second. First off, this food aid. How could this be impactful? What could this mean? Well, if progressives, and this is something that progressives have been fighting for, is additional food aid. That many people are struggling. They're food insecure all over the country, millions of people, simply because they don't have enough money to go and buy food, especially in a time like this when costs are rising. And so U.S. House progressives are now saying that if Republicans get their way, and there will be an expanded work rule in order to get this debt ceiling passed, or this debt ceiling lifted, well, they want to come out and, again, there's going to be some backlash. There'll be some pushback. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think there'll be some pushback, but again, I think they have to vote for it, because if they don't, the repercussions and the dominoes that would fall after would actually be bigger than a small little decrease to SNAP benefits. But again, how do you decide? Okay, it's like, how do you decide between, okay, let's prevent the U.S. economy from a recession. Let's prevent us from being the laughing stock of the world, right? Let's prevent us from doing that. But at the same time, in order to do this, we have to take away from our citizens, take away from the people, and they will lose some of their benefits. That's a big issue, right? Here's something else. House GOP pushes Senate to cancel recess over debt ceiling. One thing you need to keep in mind is that right now, the House and Senate, they don't have a lot of days left. Even though I'm saying we got like 16 days from today in order to get this debt ceiling passed, guess what? Doesn't mean the House and the Senate are in session for all of those days. That's a major concern. That's a huge problem. Because if they're not in session, well, how do they get anything done? Now let's read this letter. Let's read this letter right here. So it says, Dear Mr. Speaker, I'm writing to follow up on my previous letters regarding the debt limit and to provide additional information regarding the Treasury Department's ability to continue to finance the operations of the federal government. In my May 1st letter, I noted that our best estimate was that Treasury would be unable to continue to satisfy all the government's obligations by early June if Congress does not raise or suspend the debt limit before that time. In that letter, I also noted that while it is impossible to predict with certainty the exact date when Treasury will be unable to pay all the government's bills, I would continue to update Congress as more information becomes available. With additional information now available, I am writing to note that we still estimate that Treasury will likely no longer be able to satisfy all the government's obligations if Congress has not acted to raise or suspend the debt limit by early June, and potentially as early as June 1st. These estimates are based on currently available data and federal receipts. Outlays and debt could vary from these estimates. The actual date Treasury exhausts extraordinary measures could be a number of days or weeks later than these estimates. I'll provide an additional update to Congress next week as more information becomes available. We have learned from past debt limit impasses that waiting until the last minute to suspend or increase the debt limit can cause serious harm to business and consumer confidence. raise short-term borrowing costs for taxpayers, and negatively impact the credit rating of the United States. In fact, we have already seen Treasury's borrowing costs increase substantially for securities maturing in early June. If Congress fails to increase the debt limit, it would cause severe hardship to American families, harm our global leadership position, and raise questions about our ability to defend our national security interests. Says, I continue to urge Congress to protect the full faith and credit of the United States by acting as soon as possible. Janet L. Yellen. That is her letter. Now, let's be very clear on this. In just 2 weeks, this could be a disaster. This letter may mean nothing. Okay? The House progressives, if they hold out and they don't pass this bill. Again, we don't have a bill yet. So this is a major concern, is not only do we need a bill, but we have to have the negotiations first. We can't vote on something if we don't have a bill. We can't have a bill if we don't have negotiations. We can't have negotiations if we have all this fighting. So right now, it's come together. Let's get to the root of the problem, which is we need to increase the debt ceiling. But how do we do that? Well, Democrats say they want a clean bill. Republicans say they want to ensure that we reduce spending. So what does that mean? Well, it means the fights are going to continue. Today, we know that Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden are going to meet. They hopefully have some stuff to discuss from both of their aides. And if this does happen, again, we're getting closer to a deal. I don't think a deal was struck today. I think the negotiations are going to improve. I think we get a little bit closer. But as we get more information, I promise I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But just understand, in just 2 weeks, we could be in the middle of a major disaster.